Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crying is a Free Action, a podcast about politics, North Dakota, North Carolina, United States, all around the globe, really. Our goal here is to keep you updated on how we think you should vote, how we think you should spend your hard-earned vote. That means we're a partisan website. We will tell you our opinions and why we think that. You don't have to agree with us, but we have your best interest at heart. So, who we are is I'm Justin. I own a small business in my home state of North Dakota. And after the last election cycle, I decided that everybody needed to do everything they can within their power to try to change things. So John Stewart said, instead of writing a manifesto, start a podcast. And I was getting pretty close to manifesto time. So here we are with a podcast. I'm here joined by two very good friends of mine. Al, who I'll have introduced first. He's going to be a co-host of the show for the duration. And we're also joined today by our good friend Tommy, who's going to weigh in on this stuff. So go ahead. Al, please introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Al. My full first name is Alvaro, but I'm a veteran. I am currently working in IT, and I have a vested interest because I'm an immigrant. I'm a citizen now, but I came here through a lot of immigration laws that changed. That's me.
Tommy,
Yep,
welcome.
and hi.
You're in the rotating thing. I see. I'm gonna have to fix this browser a little bit here when we're done doing introductions. You're in the rotating host chair. Welcome to the show. This is kind of episode 0. We're still testing out the format and everything. But why are you here and why are you a guest? Go ahead and explain to the people what relevancy you have here for us.
Well, hi, I'm Tommy. I live in Florida, beautiful Sunshine State. I am a software engineer in the tourism field. So, as these big changes in, I guess we call our global politics are going on, it's definitely going to affect, me and, my big employer, the mouse. So it's kind of important that we try to spread the word. We should get out and vote because it's really going to affect my business and a lot of other people too.
Absolutely. So perfect. Alrighty. So let's jump right into the news then. Well, actually, before we do that, let's talk about the name of the show. Crying is a Free Action. So I'm a small business owner, and we deal with card games, board games, traditional games, things of that nature. And I'm a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons and things of that nature. And we were sitting around a couple of months ago, and one of my good friends said, "Remember, crying is always a free action." And if you don't know what that means, typically in D&D you get several actions. You get a move action. You can do an attack action. Usually your free action is for something like warning an ally or taunting an opponent. But crying is always a free action, and you can do it whenever you want. You can do it at work. They can't stop you. You can do it on the toilet. I like to do it in the shower, but it's always yours. So that's where that comes from. Like I said, we're going to do some new stuff. We're going to do some gaming stuff. We're going to split the podcast probably into 2 sections, just so that if you're interested in one, you don't have to be subject to the other and whatever. Just make it easy on people. Trying to keep you entertained and updated as best we can in these trying times. So let's jump in to the first news article over here. And the title of this is North Dakota Resolution Urging End to Same-Sex Marriage Advances. And so what the quick read of this is that they had a House resolution to urge the Supreme Court to define marriage as between one man and one woman, and that passed the House. So I'm going to read this article to you real quick. Let me scroll down a little here. So as you can see, the Mr. Veit, I'm not quite sure how to say that. He's out of Hazen. I don't know that I want somebody like that in office who doesn't want to respect people's rights. However, so the way this law works is it's not really a law and it's non-binding. It doesn't really mean anything. All it is the House of North Dakota has asked the United States Supreme Court to overturn its ruling on um, gay marriage, essentially same-sex couples. And so we have a representative out of Fargo, Austin Foss. He said that he would never thought 1 year after marrying the man he loves in North Dakota that he would have to fight for their right to exist. And unfortunately, that is just kind of the sad state that a lot of states are in right now. And so I just wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about that and where. So here in North Dakota, we had same-sex marriage legalized before the federal level, which I was really proud of. Um, and it was pretty much legal everywhere. Um, Al, what was the situation like down for you down in North Carolina with that stuff?
Pretty sure it's still legal here. I don't know that they've tried to change it yet,
Mm-hmm.
but let me do a quick Google search about it.
And Tommy, you're in
Florida.
sunny Florida. I would imagine that you probably see some resolutions like this sort of thing out of your government down there as well, unless I'm not understanding it. But
I'm taking a look for it right now as well. Using Wikipedia.
yeah, absolutely.
But it doesn't. It considering we do have a couple, I would say like LGBT like havens,
That's
right?
good.
Yeah, like Key West. Key West
Oh,
is the track
absolutely.
community is really big about maintaining. So you would think that we would actually have like gay marriage first in Florida, but we only got it around the same time as I guess the 2015
Oh, sure,
law.
sure.
So
Yeah, and we're not here to talk about. Well, I mean, the problem is so many people are like, "Well, get gender out of politics and things of that nature," and like that would be great. Like, but you keep
If
talking
they
about,
weren't always
yeah,
trying to rule on
yeah,
it.
you were like you always want to like pass laws on people's bodies, and I'm just not here for it.
Right.
I don't, as long as you are two consenting, you know, responsible adults for the most part. I don't care what you're doing or who you marry, kind of thing. But like, so many people they talk like, oh well, if we let two men get married, what is next? A man and a dog? And it's like, no, dude, nobody wants to marry a dog. You're clearly sick if that's what you want.
Yeah,
So
if you're going that far just from that, you probably should not be weighing in on anything.
yeah, so I don't understand the point. Like, there was a really good skit in 30 Rock where it's like, you know, Hillary Clinton wants an all gay military. How will that affect my marriage? And it's just the same thing of like, literally, these people are not hurting anybody. All they want is the same rights that the rest of us barely get. So I'm just really disappointed because I thought we were doing better as a state, but after the laws like our Christ is King, resolution, and we'll talk about one of the other resolutions that failed coming up. Paying for student lunches, eliminating lunch debt, free student lunches. We have more than enough money to pay for it. Like, why are we not doing it? Like, what is, and I want to ask people, what is your reasoning not for people of the same sex to get married? You don't have a good reason that I've heard yet. Some people say it's religious, and hey, that doesn't go with the law. That's the whole point of this country. So, anything to add?
Well, yes, the whole religious aspect to me is nonsense because they want to talk about religion and then they're usually the first ones that go out and cheat on their spouse. They're usually the first ones that go out and break a very number of what's supposed to be religious tenets, and they want to only pick and choose what's convenient for them.
Yeah, I agree with that completely.
yep,
Um,
it definitely is one where if we try to give them an example of hey, what if if it's not just the standard Christian laws, maybe it's a different kind of religion's laws.
Right.
Would you be okay with this? And if they're not, then you would assume and maybe we should not have religion at all when it comes to dealing with our legal things
And
and law
Right.
things.
That should be the way it should be. That was what our country was founded on, the separation of church and state. And nowadays, it's the line between that is blurred for whatever reason. Oh, hi, Kitty.
did you hear my cat?
Yes.
Yes.
Hi, Hawk. Anyways, and it's I spent some time working as a chaplain in a state prison, and I'll be totally honest. The only reason they thought I was qualified is because I had helped fill in with the previous chaplain a couple of times. I was an atheist, still basically am, but like I saw religion help people, and I saw what like some of the nicest people I know and come into my store are very religious, and they're good people. And I don't understand how they don't see some of these actions as just straight up blasphemy. Like, you got Donald Trump up there holding up a Trump Bible like it's something he wrote and endorsed kind of thing. Like, hey, this is my version. Like, that's blasphemy. Like, that's how it's defined. But that's a topic for another day, because I'm sure they're going to do that again too. They always got to have some grift to take people's money. So let's move on to the next story. So this is the one I already alluded to a little bit. This is free school meals bill fails in North Dakota House. So this just kind of sucks. There's not really a good reason why. It did get only narrowly beaten. So we're making progress. With all the oil money and taxes that we collect from that stuff in the state, there's no reason we shouldn't be paying for this, especially because in a lot of the rural areas of North Dakota, there are food deserts. And again, there's just no real reason that we need to have any of that in the year 2025. So I'm going to switch back to that one.
Yeah, it's a real big disappointment, because we are considered one of like the richest countries in the world, right?
Yeah.
We can't even feed our children.
Yeah.
And it's I remember even as a child, my family actually did have some financial troubles when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I do remember there was a period where I could not qualify for the free lunch program.
Oh, yeah.
But my mother could also not give me like my lunch money and stuff.
Right.
So I actually would go to the lunch line and could not be able to pay. So I got no food. So I actually relied on sometimes the kindness of like my other fellow students.
Sure.
Which, that's all asking a lot for children to be better than adults, right?
Yeah. And you always hear these stories about children's like, oh, I made bracelets so I could pay off the lunch debt. That's child labor. Children do not have to make bracelets to pay off their classmates' lunch debt.
They need to go back to the mines.
Oh my God, you put that stuff in Roblox, boom, sold. They'll do whatever you want. Put Roblox on the blockchain. They'll figure out how to harness the power.
Yeah, they'll figure out how to mine Bitcoin in a second.
Oh yeah, just every physical block they mine in Minecraft. That's one bit on the chain. I have no idea how the blockchain works really.
Me neither.
I ask you guys these questions.
That's a different podcast. Join us on our.
That's a different side of IT.
The Crypto Bros podcast we definitely are gonna do, because we definitely. Okay, listen, I do know some people who made some money on crypto, but I don't have any money to invest. So, the one saving grace about not having free lunches for kids in North Dakota is they did pass a bill to give students a savings account toward stuff they would need for school. And I'm worried because this is just another one of those things of like, it's making charter schools like more of a like, ooh, see, we're giving you this money, you can go to a charter school. But the other thing is it can be used for student lunches. It can be used for textbooks and things of that nature. It can be also used for, like if you need you need construction paper for whatever, I don't know, you can use that money to go out and buy it kind of thing. But so that's nice. It's like $500 per year per student. and depending on your income, it goes up to $3,500. So that's good, and I'm really hoping that that makes a dent and helps out here in the state. So that was out of a representative out of Bismarck, and she seems all right. Hopefully, good. They take more cues from her. I know in Minnesota, Tim Walz had been talking about on the campaign trail how he got to sign in the bill for free student lunches in all of Minnesota, and I think it was lunches and breakfast. Do you guys have any programs like that where you're at?
Here in North Carolina, we do, but we don't. It depends on the school district. Like for example, my son's school last year, we're in the we live in the Triangle. Not to divulge too much information, but the school district, it's one of the school districts here, was doing free lunch, and it was. I mean, it didn't matter whether you qualified based on income or not. It was simply just you got free breakfast and lunch, I think that lasted because they had a specific fund set aside for it.
Sure.
But on the other hand, they're also trying to do something similar to what you're talking about with basically a voucher system, but that would essentially do away with the public schools here.
Yeah, that's. Let's circle back to the vouchers and the charter school stuff. Tommy, does Florida or any of the area where you're at, do they do free lunches for students?
Not for every student, of course. I think every district has like a free lunch program, but if we're talking more of a, kind of a bigger situation, we actually had this situation over in Seminole County where they actually had to explain how come we could not provide like a big free lunch program.
Sure.
So back in like 2023, and part of it is that there were certain government restrictions and guidelines from the Department of Agriculture's like community eligibility provision program.
Sure.
And because Seminole County didn't meet like a certain threshold, it did not qualify to get the funding for free lunches.
Oh.
So that was what they explained in that sense.
Sure. And this is the thing is these politicians, they always talk about like, hey, we're here for the kids. We want to protect kids, but you going hungry? Fuck that. Kid.
Yeah, screw that.
Yeah.
Screw you. You pull yourself up by the bootstraps.
Yeah. Get a job. Who's that guy? There was that politician who's like, well, I had a job picking apples. Like, dude, shut up. Is that what you want your children to do? Do you want like I want kids to like come home from school and play Xbox
And be kids.
and like play Yu-Gi-Oh cards and stuff, like be children.
Yeah.
I don't even really want high school kids to work if they don't have to. I worked a ton in high school and I was miserable. It sucked. And the thing is we're never gonna, at the rate we're going, there's never gonna be federal money at all for any
not
of
anymore
this thing, because that's all gonna get marked under like abuse and fraud and waste.
Yep.
It's but they'll put it under the guise of we'll let the states handle it. And that's kind of because then that goes back to like, well, the federal government says you have to do this because if you don't, like, people suffer. And now they're rolling back all those protections and that sort of thing. So we'll have a lot more stories on that, I'm sure, coming up. Other than that, I don't have much in North Dakota news. Let's move on to North Carolina stuff. And Monkey, I'll have you do the first article.
So this has been a thing basically since our governor and our attorney general were, found to have been elected in November. Basically, the North Carolina General Assembly decided that they were going to take all the powers of the attorney general and of the governor and move them to the assembly. So they're basically making those two offices powerless. Now they're trying to push it further by trying to limit the AG's powers and trying to stop him from suing the Trump administration. Where I'm sure you're aware, a lot of states have sued for different reasons, namely the birthright citizenship issue, and that's been one of the main sticking points with this bill to limit the AG's powers. So the rest of the stuff is different. Ban phones in schools, I'm okay with that. But mandating ICE cooperation, I don't think a lot of places are going to do that.
And when they talk about ICE cooperation, what places are we talking about here?
I mean, we're talking about just the entire state. Like they want, so there's certain cities in the state that are considered, I guess, sanctuary cities. I think Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham. That's definitely Durham. And what they want to do is basically make it so that the sheriff's offices and the local police departments have to cooperate with ICE.
And so and as somebody with a law enforcement background, I just want to step in. Like, that's especially bad because the whole point of electing a sheriff is that you elect somebody who has an independent voice in law enforcement,
Hmm.
and the whole point of having a city police force is that you elect a mayor who appoints a chief who guides the department in the mayor's vision of what they ran on. So that's bad.
Yeah, it's bad. The only good things that so far the General Assembly has done, in my opinion, is trying to ban phones in school, because I think it can be disruptive. Don't get me wrong. I don't. I use my phone. My son barely uses his phone. I have it's like pulling teeth trying to get that kid to use his phone to reply to me when I need
Really?
him. Yes.
So this whole meme about kids are always like glued to their phone, not really.
No, it doesn't really apply to him.
Oh, okay.
I mean, it definitely applies to a lot of other kids,
Oh yeah,
but
I see a lot
he's
of kids in my store where it's just like they can't the disconnect between the phone and their face. I'm like, come on, you can talk to me. I know you know
yeah,
me.
like if he has literally nothing to do, then yes, he'll use his phone. But if he's like when I take him shooting, when we go to
Oh
different
geez.
when you go hiking and stuff
Mhm.
like that, he's not on his phone at all.
Oh well, that's good because I probably would be, and I'm almost 40.
Yep. I'm probably on my phone all the time still, probably more than your son. So
Yeah,
So
I mean, I think I'm on my phone more than he is, honestly.
so I want to talk a little. Oh, I'm sorry, my cat is on my lap and she's very jumpy. Um, I want to talk a little bit more about why the state would try to be limiting the powers of the attorney general and
I mean, I want to not be like um fear mongering or anything, but it's just a power grab, in my
yeah,
opinion.
and so what's really
Really,
happening
just
here
a power grab.
is what
hey,
this is
mom.
about is over.
No, just
Uh,
filming a podcast.
nice
Just filming something.
live show, baby.
Yeah, just having a
Hell
puppy out
yeah,
here.
Family first, people. That
yep,
is always the answer. All right,
yep,
unless your family sucks, then whatever, do whatever you want.
yeah.
That's why your friends are your friends. They're the family you get to choose. Anyway, so the reason they want to limit the attorney general's power because there's a lawsuit. The lawsuit is against Elon Musk and Doge, and the reason being is that this government department, again, it doesn't really exist. There's
Mm-mm.
no money set aside from it for Congress. There's no, now it has this faux director who they've picked, who I don't even remember her name because she was on vacation at the time.
Right. Well,
So,
Yeah.
let me walk that back.
sure.
So Doge is actually a rebranded United States digital service, but with the United States digital service, none of what Doge is doing right now is in the mission parameters of the department, basically. So
Yeah, the original thing about that digital one was to like maybe modernize.
modernize the government, correct?
Yes. The big problem is right now, um, so they're just not using the government. They're going outside of the rules and the laws of how our federal government works. You
Mm-hmm.
have to have that body that is approved by Congress. You have to have the head of it who is approved by Congress. And if Elon Musk is in charge, and we'll talk a little bit more about him a little later too.
Mm-hmm.
He has to be approved by Congress to be in charge. He has to, just like Kash Patel, who we'll talk about later too. Yeah, he's a character. That's being nice about it. So, because none of this is being done legally, and Elon Musk has already fired a ton of people, and in my opinion, totally illegally because he is not the head of
I
any.
mean, it's not an opinion. It's factual. There's
I believe it is
nothing.
factual. Yeah.
There's nothing opiniony about it. It's a fact that they're letting people go that they have no power to remove.
Correct. And so a bunch of attorney generals who are typically pretty good lawyers are suing and trying to move this into a federal court so that judges and other, lawyers can look at this and go, what is this? The problem is Trump spent his first term stacking the Supreme Court to do whatever he wants. So we'll see how this goes as it goes through court. But their docket is years out at this point for what they can hear. So we'll have to see. But we'll talk a little more about all the problems with Elon Musk. Um, if you don't know where to start with Elon Musk, I highly recommend you go to easyvotend.com. And then if you go to the little bar up top or the little three buttons if you're on a phone and go to media, the second video down right now is one about Elon Musk that I recommend everybody watch. Because if you don't think he is an actual Nazi, that video will convince you he definitely wants to be one. So other than that, so North Carolina doesn't want this attorney general to be part of this lawsuit. So
No, it's
that's why they're limiting
especially
his power.
right. It's especially because the attorney general is so well liked here in the state. He's probably one of the best politicians I've ever seen.
And
Honestly,
so, and I would imagine then too the opposition or whomever is like, well, he could be governor next, so we can't have that. We got to make that as hard as possible.
yeah, I mean, he was already either I don't remember if he was a congressman or a senator, but he was pretty involved in in the progress of government until he was gerrymandered out.
Oh yeah, we should do a whole episode on what gerrymandering is at one point, because if you don't know what that is, if you don't know what gerrymandering is, I highly recommend you look it up. It is a problem all over this country. It's basically how we're in the situation we're in. Um, it's cutting up districts and things so voters vote one way. It's a nightmare. Let's move on to the next story then. I'm gonna do this. Ah yes, this is a good one. Go ahead.
So this next one is just all sorts of fucked up because Republicans have been in charge of the budget here in North Carolina for 10, 14 years or something like that. And now they're talking about bringing something like a Doge style review to North Carolina to find fraud or waste, like they're not the ones running it. So it's essentially going to be another thing of they're just going to cut out what they don't like. I mean, I
And
don't.
I don't, we're not, we are clearly dunking on Republicans in a probably.
Oh, I'm absolutely dunking on Republicans in this specific instance because
Yeah,
they've been in charge of the budget and the government for a decade plus now, and they're insinuating that there's still waste, fraud, and abuse
yep,
in their in their government.
yep. And here's the thing is, North Dakota also had to have a Doge. Every house has a Doge. Um, so I'm not opposed to the idea of eliminating fraudulent
No,
spending and
not at
waste and
all. But
abuse.
you
But
need to
like,
bring in auditors. You need to bring in forensic accountants. You
yep,
need to bring in people who know these systems and
yep,
can go through the muck.
yep.
You don't just bring in a bunch of randos that are just going to start deleting shit
Not to
and
mention,
getting rid of stuff.
you could
And that's
easily add this as like a department to the FBI or the Department of Justice, just as an auditing system. You know, the thing is like right now they're talking like at a federal level specifically. They're talking, oh, we spent $50 million on condoms, and it was like, no, we absolutely did not. That was a lie.
No,
Right.
it was part of an incentive to try to combat AIDS in a country in the southern
Mozambique.
African
Yeah,
continent. Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
yeah. Which, guess what? Seems like a pretty good humanitarian thing to do.
Yeah,
and
that's.
and
I mean, I don't
people
understand.
don't they don't understand why we do this to begin with, so I'm going to explain this. So the reason we provide goodwill to countries is, one, we're the richest nation in the world, and why the hell shouldn't we? That's number one with a bullet. Two, I don't know if you know this, but we provide a lot of that aid to like Southeast Asian countries and African countries and places where, guess what? We have goods manufactured, military bases, things of that nature. Like, the reason we have such a vested interest in Africa and African countries is because there are raw minerals there that almost nobody has claimed yet, because there just isn't equipment there and nobody owns it yet. And this is why China is cozying up with Africa, because not only do they see it as a place of minerals, but even a place as cheaper labor for them. So we have to remember, like, do we want to stay ahead as a country, even though like we're the richest country in the world and we should just be doing it anyways? But like, there's tangible benefits to it. So when you cut programs like that, not only do those people hurt, but like the fringe benefits for the United States and a lot of other people, honestly, go away later.
Yeah,
So yeah,
the concept of like soft power, right? So the idea is that
Yep.
we can make hard deals and we can, rule with a mighty stick. And people should fear me, and that's why you should make trades with me. But soft power is definitely something that a lot of people are maybe missing. That's
right,
it's kind of important. You kind of be friendly with your neighbors so that they might help you out in the future.
right,
They might look at you as like a positive, in a positive light instead of just always this fear and
absolutely.
Right.
power.
It's basically a campaign to win the hearts and minds of all these different places, where they give us preferential treatment when it comes time for them to, they have a new port. Maybe they want to lease us military access to it. They open a new resource mine. Maybe they want to give us first dibs. It's a very important part of international negotiating and international relations. This isn't just, oh, we're just going to throw money at whoever. No, that's not at all what this is.
And the thing that people call it socialism, and like, or in a lot of cases, like, people will call the international stuff just good business, but if you want to give that same sort of stuff to your people at home, then it's socialism. So what do you want, man?
Yeah, well, I
You can't,
mean,
like, it's
You
they,
got me
neither. I
there.
hate to tell you, like, it's both, it's neither.
yeah, I mean,
Yes.
this the majority of the people who say this are the kind that will support veterans and be like, "Thank you for your service," but then they'll see a homeless veteran out there and ain't gonna do shit for them.
Yep. Alrighty, so
I mean, I wish I could provide Florida news, but it's exactly the exact same things are going on.
Yeah,
yeah.
I feel like it's going to be the same thing repeatedly for a lot of, especially red states.
Oh yeah. Okay, then in lieu of Florida news, what's the last most Florida thing you saw in person?
Oh,
I kind of put you on the spot there.
yeah, that's a good question. Come back to me in a
I'll
minute.
circle back. We're gonna do story time because we're a
I'll do
little light
Florida
on
man
news.
news.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
As I said, I run a small business. It's a retail shop. It's open to the public. Um, I was not there. My business partner was, and I got a
Oh God,
text.
this thing.
Yep. So I got a text, and he was like, "Dude, this guy just said the N word in here," and I was like, "What?" And it was over because we have a no. We're not trading or buying cards at all right now, just because we have a huge backlog and people keep being freaks like this guy. Um, and so like he's like, "No trades. That's pretty N word." And like, one, that doesn't make sense. Two, what? And so my business partner was so stunned. He was just like, "Dude, you can't say that in here." And the guy was like, "Oh, sorry." So he like wanders around for like 3 minutes, walks back up to my business partner, and he's like, I'm half black. And my business partner's like, no, you're not. You need to go. And so the guy's like, oh, and he leaves. We hear from one of our customers later. They were at the pawn shop. He was at the pawn shop, also using the N word. And then apparently he tried to get like physical with one of the like people who worked at the pawn shop, but all those guys carry guns. Are you kidding me? And then so like the guy was like, "Oh shit, you're trying to come behind the register." He starts going for his gun, and the guy's like, and then this guy's like, all of a sudden he's not so tough. I'm just leaving. Okay, never mind, no problem. So, yeah, that's the world we live in now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Monkey, you got any stories you want to share from the week?
No, not nothing. I mean, no, I got nothing,
All
man.
right,
Not
that's
not this
okay.
We,
week.
I mean, we have a lot of things we can bitch about, but the
Oh yeah.
stories. The one guy here, I
If
think
you
I
got
sent
something you
you.
want to bitch about, let's bitch. That's yeah, that's what we're here
I,
for.
I'm good for now.
All right, let's
I
do
was, I was,
national news,
Mhm.
and if you want to bitch, then you can do it. All right, so this story from Politico. Go ahead.
So this is an article that's been making the rounds, I guess you could say, but it's essentially calling for the Trump administration to hire either private military contractors or for different law enforcement agencies to essentially deputize private citizens and provide incentives for bringing people in to um, bringing people into custody if they're illegal or they're deemed to be a threat or whatever. It's essentially just doing the same thing that the brown shirts and whatnot were doing in the 1930s and 40s back in Germany. That's essentially what this shit is. Like I'm not gonna sugarcoat it.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, it says there it's led by Blackwater veteran Eric
Mm-hmm.
Ritz, and if you didn't know, Blackwater. So basically, they were found guilty of committing crimes while they were performing private military services. I believe it was in Afghanistan.
It was in Iraq.
It was in Iraq. Okay.
It was in Iraq. So Blackwater was I mean, a pretty high profile private military company, and they've been involved in some shit, and they've rebranded a couple times because of it. They went from Blackwater, I think, to like G, and then now they're known as Academy.
And for a
But
little
basically,
while, they weren't allowed. Like I know this because I work for a private police force, and it worked a lot like a PMC does. But like the whole rumor was like, oh yeah, all those Blackwater guys, like all they do is sit in like all they do is monitor cameras now, So for a while, they weren't allowed to do like PMC stuff. I should say.
right?
So,
Yeah,
but this guy is one of the guys who was. He's got a lot
I
close.
think he was one of the founders
Correct.
of the company,
Correct.
or maybe the founder.
Let's double check here. It's almost as if. There we go. It doesn't say. At any rate, this is bad, and so the the figure is that they are supposedly going to try and deport. The number would have to be 500,000 illegal immigrants a month to get them all out by the end of Trump's term. So how is that even like that's not possible?
That no, that's really not something that our infrastructure is currently set up to handle. I mean, that's everything they did in Gitmo is not anywhere close to necessary to what they would need to have to be able to do that. It's just going it's basically just going to turn into having just random ass. They're probably going to end up getting sent to RFK's labor camps,
Yeah, and that is a
which is a
distinct
whole separate
that is,
thing.
yes, that's a whole other thing that is totally possible that you might start seeing a lot of federal money being spent on prison camps and that sort of thing here in the very immediate future. Wellness camps. That's what they want to
Mm-hmm.
call it.
Yep,
So go ahead.
just gives people some numbers. So like last year, right, we had some of the highest record numbers of processing and deportation cases, about 270,000.
Wow.
So now we're asking for a lot. This is definitely a lot
It's
more.
basically doubling it. I mean,
Yeah.
But that was for the whole year, correct?
that was for the
Correct.
whole year.
Whole
So
year.
yeah, they would need to double it each month.
Yeah, that's
impossible.
ridiculous, and
You know,
it's crazy to me to think that the entire time that we've been having this so-called immigrant issue, Obama deported a lot more immigrants than Trump ever has
Yep.
so far.
Yep.
Nobody talks about that because it wasn't a key part of his campaign. It wasn't something that they wanted to put on the forefront, but it was still being done because it's a necessary part of the government. Like, don't get me wrong, I agree that if people need to get deported, they need to get deported. If they're doing illegal shit, like if they're violent, if they have mental health issues, if they're if they're all that shit, if they need to get deported, they get deported. But just going after people who are just living here and working their jobs, that's never been the intention, I don't think.
Yeah, nobody's arguing that the violent, horrible illegal immigrants should go. Like, I think everybody can agree on this one.
If
Nobody's
you're a criminal, there are consequences. But I'm not,
But just crossing the border,
shouldn't be
right. Just crossing the border shouldn't be something that people get so demonized for.
I agree.
Nobody here is a native descended from native here. Like we're not like Native Americans.
No.
That's the only people that have any real right to be here.
Yep, pretty much. And we stuck them on on reservations.
Yep.
Yeah, and so especially with it's just really sad that with all of that like what I'm frightened of is if they would try to say like, well, we're going to deploy the military in the United States to get all the immigrants out. That's the only way we can do it. Except it would never stop there. They would just be like, all right, now who's next?
All right, now we're going after our political enemies. Yep. Like the country, the country where I'm from.
Go ahead.
The country where I'm from. Sorry to cut you off. I'm from Nicaragua, and I don't know if any of you have read up on what's gone on there in recent times, but the president there has been in power since like 2010 or something like that, dude. It's been a long time, and this isn't even the first time that wasn't even the first time that he had been in the presidency. He had a go previously, and nobody liked him, so they voted him out. But then, of course, in typical dumbass people fashion, they voted him back in, and he gave himself more and more power. Now, him and his wife are quote unquote co-presidents.
Oh, they're just making it up as they go. Cool.
Yep, they're just making it up as they go, and they just withdrew from the UN Human Rights Organization, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that's not great.
And a few years ago, they had protests because I think they changed something with Social Security laws, and they just had people gunned down, and the political opponents were disappeared. Government watchdogs were exiled. NGOs were just completely blocked. Shit like that. I feel like that's a non-government organization, which USAID is not a non-government organization for anybody who has that misconception.
Their money is assigned by Congress. It cannot be an NGO, just so you're
right.
aware. That's exactly how that works. Yeah, and honestly, I believe is what Donald Trump and his cohorts want to do in this country. Like literally, when there were protests, his last things, he was just like, "Can't you just shoot them all in the legs?" Like that was a real thing he asked, like National Guardsmen or Capitol Police or something.
And if it hadn't been for the military commanders in at the time, he would have absolutely tried to do it.
Yep. Yeah, it's super scary, and Like getting a bunch of these Blackwater guys and like what, who can we trust to, disobey an illegal order? I always think about that.
I think about it as well. I mean, I would hope that a lot of our service members, people that have sworn to defend the Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, which would see the threat that this is.
Yeah, oh absolutely. And if you don't, are you coming aboard? My cat. And if you don't understand why I don't want to say we're pessimistic, but it's scary because we talked a little bit about how he is ending birthright citizenship, heavy air quotes, because
Yeah, trying to.
trying
There's
to.
been one of the lawsuits that's been brought against the administration.
So if you didn't know, that is an amendment to the Constitution. It takes a huge act to both add and subtract to the Constitution, which, if you also didn't know, is basically the document that is how our government is formed. So, if you don't know the U.S. Constitution, you should probably Google it. But the thing is what President Trump did was an executive order, and really all an executive order can do is you have to remember that he is all like the president is the boss of the federal government. He is the boss of all of the employees in the federal government. It's like the governor is the boss of all of the employees of the state government. It's like the mayor is the boss of all the employees in your city government. So really all an executive order does is give a direction to the government. That's really all that they can do. So what he did has no power. It's totally unprecedented. While calling it illegal might be a little disingenuous because it's just not legal. It just has no power. But
It's got a gray area. It's in a gray area that he's absolutely taking advantage of.
yeah, and personally, I don't think it's that gray as somebody who
Well,
works with the law, but they certainly seem to think so. Um,
they just think the law doesn't apply to them anymore.
correct, and
That's what it comes down
and
to.
it's always the same because it's just rich folk, laws for thee, not for me.
Right, trying to put down the rest of us.
Yep, absolutely. So
Yeah,
we've got. Go ahead, Tommy.
I mean, that's also like that's kind of just like the history, right? So just to tell people like what the normals, what it should be is that the president's supposed to like work with members of Congress and their party to try to pass laws
Yep.
because a president's job is not to like issue decrees and demands of what it is, just of those to
No,
execute.
it's right.
law.
That's why they're the executive branch, and Congress is the legislative branch,
Correct.
and the Supreme Court, contrary to what Tiny Pants Vance says, absolutely has the ability to interpret the law because they're the judicial branch. They have the ability to put a stop to stupid shit like what's going on. Yes, that's why we have the whole system of checks and balances.
Correct.
Everybody just seems to have forgotten that since elementary school.
Yeah, and that's coming from somebody who's not even from here. What's your excuse, America?
Yep.
Yeah. And so if you don't know, that's the whole point. They call it a system of checks and balances so that not one part of the government is ever more powerful than the other, so that there is always oversight. That was the problem with, kingdoms, because the king was just in charge of everything. And guess what? There were some shitty kings. And right now, I think Republicans want a shitty king, and they've got one. And the reason we're here is because we don't want to suffer with the rest of you. We don't hate you. Well, maybe some of you, but you're our neighbor. We want you to learn. Hey, there's my cat. We want you to learn. Monkey, you said it well earlier. No, don't go up there. You said it well earlier. Like sometimes, it might be time to break some people down to build them back up. And that's always the goal, is to build people back up. So I don't know how rounding up a bunch of illegal immigrants helps the country, because, and we've talked about this multiple times, and we talked a little bit about it last week, how immigrants end up paying more taxes than an average U.S. citizen does.
Yeah, because they don't get any, they hardly ever get any money back.
Yep.
And they also just don't apply to do taxes because they're afraid they're going to get deported.
Mm-hmm.
They're afraid that the government is going to use that to come round them up and deport them. That's why a lot of people just don't file their taxes. They'll pay their taxes all year long. They'll have their taxes taken out of their paychecks and whatnot because they're eligible to get ITINs, which individual taxpayer identification number. You can look that up on the IRS website. I had a coworker that had no idea that was a thing, and it baffles me the misinformation that people believe, like illegals being able to qualify for welfare. No, they don't.
Nope.
They can't. They
How are
literally
you gonna
cannot.
how are you gonna get welfare if you don't have a social security number?
Yeah, you can't. You can't. Illegals come here, work, and pay taxes and get none of the benefits.
Yep, absolutely.
And instead of trying to make it so that they can continue to be productive members of our society, we try to kick them out.
Yeah. And the other problem, like, and this is just another knock-on effect of this, is that we end up sending, the whole problem with the United States socioeconomic system is that we were supposed to, like, send the labor away to where it was cheaper, but then keep all the bright minds to do laborless job and thinking jobs. The problem is we asked for the brightest minds to come in, and then we kicked them out.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like our technology.
Or we make it infinitely difficult to get in, or you got to be rich to get in, like that.
Yes.
Like that gold card
and the gold card,
fucking,
yes.
yeah.
Yep.
And I know some very nice Russian oligarchs.
Yeah, there's already a precedent for that. It's called the EB-5 work visa, which we were talking about earlier in the week.
Mm-hmm.
And there's already something like that, but now it's just now it's literally you just pay $5 million.
Yep, $5 million.
Is that what it
That's
is?
pretty cheap to me, $5 million.
So the problem is this is going to replace the EB-5.
Yep.
And that's a problem because that will also remove another legitimate, and they were already using it as kind of a fraud and thing where it's just like, I would send my Chinese son over to the United States to start a company and I'd invest in it and then I can get citizenship. And honestly, that's fine because you don't hear these people are not knocking over 7-Elevens or anything like
right.
that. So
they're not coming here and they're not coming here and starting shit. No, they're coming here and making money.
So, exactly. And they're paying taxes, they're homeowners, they're contributing to their community. And so, unfortunately, that's gonna limit even more people who want to come here and contribute positively because they don't have $5 million.
Right, and it's ridiculous. I mean, all this immigrant stuff is just a scapegoat for all this stuff that the government knows that they can't fix with any sort of expediency. It's all it is.
Yeah, and it's one of those things they always pick a boogeyman. You got to be afraid of immigrants. You're afraid of immigrants.
Yeah, you got to be afraid. You got to be afraid of immigrants. You got to be afraid of trans people in sports. You got to be afraid of
people who. You got to be afraid of cancel culture.
Yeah, you got to be afraid of woke. You got to be afraid of DEI. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's then the whole thing with trans. I saw that they passed a couple of different states have passed laws, I think, banning trans athletes from high school. I mean, they did it at the federal level. Yeah. I know that.
Which again, they do not have the power to do. What they could could do and probably will do is they can say because this amount of money from this department goes to schools. Mm-hmm. You don't get any of that money unless you follow this policy. They could absolutely do that, and lots of
I saw Trump actually telling the governor of Maine that if she didn't comply, she wasn't going to get any money.
Yep.
Are you kidding? What is that?
And
what kind of country are we running now? It's just it's a joke.
Yeah. And teachers have it so hard. I couldn't do it. I wanted to be a teacher for a little while, and I was a nightmare in school. So I wouldn't want a bunch of me's.
No, I mean kids are very excuse my language towards kids, but kids are a bunch of little shitbags.
Yeah.
It's true that they can either be some of the nicest creatures to each other, or they can be the worst, absolutely fucking terrorized.
You unlocked a memory of my sister and her like little friend up the street, and how they were like friends one week and not the next, and like just like, oh, did you hear what they said about each other? I'm like, holy shit, this is an escalation of force. But yeah,
I mean,
I don't
it's
have
the
kids,
truth.
so I don't comment on it. Like I
No,
like kids, but
Yeah.
I have a 13-year-old, and dealing with him growing up is I mean, it's not a travesty. Obviously I love my son. I love watching him grow up and do things, but other kids, I mean, even him, sometimes he can be he can be a little piece of work, and it's just for teachers to deal with this for 8 hours a day,
oh man,
and
Yeah.
and parents nowadays, like I try to do the best that I can with with spending time with him, doing things with him. But a lot of parents either don't want to do that or don't have the opportunity to do that.
yeah.
So teachers essentially becomes your second parents,
And I
and
mean, and I
they
looked up to a lot of my teachers, and like
right, and
they're big
it's
shoes to fill.
it's an important role, but we treat them like such shit.
Yeah,
Yeah. Nobody's being a teacher for pay, right?
no,
No,
There's absolutely none. You could do any
no,
kind of job. You go work at Wendy's,
yeah,
get paid more than a teacher.
yeah,
So
yeah, it's ridiculous because
it's horrible.
teachers have to come in and provide their own shit a lot of the time. They have to provide shit for the kids.
Yep. I don't
Well,
know how
why
many
would you
times
want to do that if you didn't actually care?
like teachers will come into the shop and be like, "Oh, I need some Pokemon packs." When I had them, as this, and I teach the kids math with this and that, and I'm like, there is no way I'm going to charge a kindergarten teacher for 10 Pokemon packs. Are you kidding? Just take them. Like they'll be back. They always spend the kid. Just get them hooked young early for me.
yeah, that's right.
Um, no, but yeah, it's just a shame how we teach, and so going back to that, you're going to see a lot of this where this Doge at the federal level is going to cut school funding. They've already talked about school funding, Medicaid, a few other things that are definitely just going to be gone, and
Yep.
unironically, a bunch of the schools in North Dakota like could temporarily close. Just because like they'll have no money coming in. Like obviously there are some state mechanisms in there to kind of catch that, but like there
Well,
could possibly be like an actual disruption in service of the public
right.
schools.
See with the Department of Education and federal funding is the Department of Education doesn't actually fund everything that schools do.
Right.
They fund special programs for schools that need it, so in huge
Title One is a
and
big
while
one.
in rural communities, inner city communities that need it, they provide funding for all these programs, like special ed, IEPs.
That's what I was gonna say. What's the
um,
individual
education program,
thank you.
education plans,
Yep.
excuse me, individual education
That's
plans.
super important. Like
It is super important, and a lot of
I wish I had that when I was a kid because I probably would have gotten better grades. Like
yeah, I mean it's a lot of programs that are helping our kids as they go through school, and a lot of them are for actually helping transition kids that are on the spectrum and need help adjusting to adult life, and a lot of these are just up and disappeared. I saw something from a school in Pennsylvania that had like 62 kids or something like that just lost all that support.
yeah, that's
It's just gonna keep getting worse. I just don't understand how the party that is so pro kids, so trying to protect our kids, is just trying to gut the tool that really supports them the most.
yeah.
Especially in poorer rural communities,
Oh,
in
yeah.
inner city communities.
Absolutely.
I don't understand it. I can't understand it.
And
So I opened up Google and I had to Google like how much money is North Dakota receiving in federal funding for all different programs, right? So I ended up at looks like it's ND legislative like something like gov, the federal funding information looking at the 2025, 2027 bienniums.
Yep.
So this is just you can
The
take a look
brand
at
new
how
one,
much
yep.
it's very brand new, and you see how much money it actually does take that North Dakota receives from the government on how to help fund all these great programs that need. So like I'm looking here right now, it's just like even like for breakfast, right? I'm seeing here that we receive about maybe like 12 point something million, 16 million just for breakfast alone for the breakfast program of North Dakota.
Yeah.
So you just go down the list. You can take a look, and a lot of this will be cut.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah,
to get shrink.
and the shitty part is you said million, not even billion. Like there's
Exactly.
none of these programs are really making a dent in any of our budget.
Yep. In total, like the total Department of Public Instruction, so that's got in North Dakota receives about $419 million. This is we just in excess. This is just from the government. Unless I don't know how to read this thing, and then I'm just telling you all a bunch of lies, and I hope not.
No, I think you're pretty accurate.
Yeah, but
you have to remember, and this is not hyperbole. Almost all the red states get more in federal funding than
all the blue states. Yep.
Yes.
And all the blue states are usually the ones that end up paying for this. Yep.
And a lot of the reason is because a lot of blue states have a lot more population in them. Like there's
because all the bigger cities, you have all the major urban areas in the mostly blue states, and that's a lot of tax revenue. So, and a lot of these cities have the higher paying jobs, of course, but that's not to decry the fact that we need a lot of the infrastructure that is present in red states, such as farming, the different national parks, et cetera, et cetera. We need all that stuff. We're supposed to have a working ecosystem, but this is not what this is.
Yeah, and we talk about receiving federal funds. When USAID got cut, that cut a ton of money to North Dakota farmers. So I hate to say this, but if you voted for Trump because you thought he was going to support farmers and farm aid, he literally, one of the first things he did was cut farm aid.
Mm-hmm.
Now North Dakota has to have its own formed up like oil seed council and everything like that too, to try to, fix these discrepancies.
And then that goes right back to the very first thing they went after, which was USAID, which USAID buys a lot of crops from a lot of American farmers to send overseas.
Yep, and that's
a lot of lost funding for a lot of farms. With them getting what was it, the USDA? They're starting to go after the USDA. A lot of these programs that farmers bought into last year are no longer being funded. So now the farms are at risk of being lost.
And it's I'm not a farm kid. Like I grew up around it, but like we didn't grow up on a farm. I grew up in town. But I got some friends who are telling me that like crop insurance is tough to get and stuff right now. And one of them I'm really hoping to have on the show soon. So that'll be an interesting perspective once we can get more of that figured out. But it's really bad because we talked about it. Like, so the federal government would buy crops from farmers and then give it to, people who needed it overseas or wherever as a goodwill thing. Like, how is that not a win-win for everybody? Like, yeah, you got to pay taxes to pay for this, but like, you're going to pay them anyways. It's not like they're ever going to go back down. Before we get to the next news story, speaking of taxes never going down, Monkey, how are your property taxes?
Oh, God, my property taxes are probably going to go up because, of course, the North Carolina General Assembly, in all their wisdom, decided that everybody needed to reevaluate property. Basically, just another property assessment or property value. And I think my house came in at like $120,000 more than last year.
Dang.
So
congrats.
That's not a good thing. No. Not for tax purposes.
No. See, just do what I do. You want to keep your property value down? Just like middle of summer, go out in the middle of the night and just fire a couple of rounds in the air.
See, that's the fucked up part is that I live in a city that's supposedly full of crime, but yet here we are.
That just reminded me. There's been like, I listen to the radio and there'll be a little commercial bumper like of the station trying to get you to go to the app, and it's like, find out which 10 cities in North Dakota are the most dangerous. I'm like, bro, do we even have 10 cities? Like,
no, you got
cities?
like 2. You got 2.
Like, yeah, like, okay, Wilton.
2.
Wilton's one of them, I guess. Number 10.
Nope, 2.
2? Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Anyways, let's talk about. So we're talking about Doge. We're talking about Elon Musk.
Oh,
Uh,
great.
yeah, our
I think
favorite
this is
guy.
probably
My favorite
my
guy.
favorite story.
Good, go
This
on.
is probably my favorite story. So, of course, no conflict of interest, right? No conflict of interest between Doge and his company, or Musk and I'm just gonna call him the Twitter guy.
The Twitter
No
guy.
conflict of interest between the Twitter guy and being in the government and having access to all these different systems, all these different pieces of information. Well, evidently there is a problem with, according to the Twitter guy, there's a problem with the FAA's communication system, which
There's too much DEI in
sure.
it.
Well, no,
Oh,
that's not the problem. The problem is that it's outdated, and it's sure that's fine, but there's already a contract awarded to Verizon as of 2023 to update the existing systems and replace them. Well, of course, I think it was SpaceX that decided that the contract should instead go to Starlink. Who runs both of those companies? Who works 80-hour days to run SpaceX and Starlink?
Cobra
So I,
Commander.
oh, yeah. Who is it now? Who is this
Twitter
magical?
guy.
It's the Twitter guy.
Yeah, it's
He's
Twitter
he's
guy.
Oh,
that's why he works 80 hours because he's got to run 80 companies.
It's Twitter guy. It's white
Yeah,
supremacist Twitter
it's
guy.
it's ridiculous. It's blatant. That's blatant corruption.
Yes, and they're not even
that's
trying
the
to hide it.
waste. That's the waste, fraud, and abuse they should be looking for. But
And so is he gonna come? So is his idea that like, well, I could do it for cheaper? Like, is that?
I no, I don't know. They're
Yeah.
just taking it. It doesn't say what the reasoning is for taking over. They're just taking over. Then the notion that they're just going in there and replacing these systems with Starlink ones is just so fucked up because you don't just go in and just unplug a system and plug a new one in. No, that's not how this fucking works.
No.
Tommy, you're in.
but there has to be some kind of
do.
oversight. Who is supposed to say, hey, you know,
Man,
there's a
this
conflict
sure
of
would
interest?
cause a lot of waste, abuse, and fraud if this
Who's,
happened.
who's here to talk about it? Who's here to do like determine these? Don't we have like judges or something that said this is a conflict of
No,
interest?
there's supposed to be congressional oversight committees that are in charge of overseeing what all these different, I guess, government agencies do. In this case, Doge would be a a government agency, but there is a Doge oversight committee. But guess who's the fucking chairperson?
Twitter guy?
Is it
No,
Twitter guy?
Cobra
no,
Commander?
it's just as bad. It's fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh.
And she's absolutely in love with what they're doing.
Oh, of course. She's terrible.
Yeah, it's ridiculous that this is where we're at, and the idea that they're just going to go into all these different airports, basically airports, FAA offices, and replace all these systems with Starlink shit is just what kind of fucking ketamine high were you on when you decided this?
Also, if you didn't know, Elon Musk does a ton of ketamine.
Yes, that's how he stays awake all the time.
It's ketamine is an animal tranquilizer. Do not do it as a recreational drug. I don't
thanks
care
for
if
letting
they
me
call
know.
it Special K.
I didn't know about that actually.
Yeah. Don't do ketamine.
They gave my dog ketamine when he got fixed.
Yep, there it goes. That's the only time you can use ketamine is if they're going to cut your balls off. So, I'm flabbergasted by this whole thing because he's just like, oh no, literally all he's doing is he's like, I don't want Verizon to have that money. I want that money.
Which I hope Verizon decides that
they
they're not going to fucking take that lying down.
Let the corporate wars begin.
Yeah, this is gonna. I mean, if it turns into some cyberpunk shit, I will definitely enlist with Verizon.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just for a few months.
Just for the free fiber.
Yep.
Yeah. Just for
that I'd go with Google.
When I'm on vacation, I go over on my data constantly.
Yeah, no one wants to fight against big telecom. So
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's one big secret big telecom hates.
Absolutely. All right, so let's hit the final national news story this week. Let me transition here. Go ahead. This guy.
This fucking guy. He's considering Cash
Cash
Patel
Patel.
was
Yep.
confirmed. Cash Patel, if you didn't know, was recently confirmed to be the FBI director. Well, one of the very first thing he's trying to do is have UFC train agents in martial arts. Like I I don't know. I don't even know what to say to that, honestly. Like there's sure.
I'm not against this.
So
But I don't think it's a good use of resources, to be honest.
okay.
But
I used to work in law enforcement, and I actually used what our school of training was here for like self defense and things of that is a course called Pressure Point and Control Tactics (PPCT), and it's all about like joint locks, wrist locks,
Right, and
ways of
I would
getting people
assume
into handcuffs without like hurting them forever, like without
right.
injuring them.
I would assume that people in law enforcement actually use that because it falls in line with their role. You don't training people in martial arts a la UFC style
Right.
is you're like we're not sending our FBI agents to just beat the shit out of people for a few minutes at a time.
No, you have to remember most like FBI agents like sit in an office and read documents and like go over stuff day after day after day. They're out there that are kicking doors and on task force.
Yeah, I
and
mean
stuff like that.
they have to meet physical fitness standards.
Oh, absolutely.
They have physical training programs. It's just like there's I don't necessarily think that this would be something that would fall in line with what the FBI as an organization is supposed to be doing. Like
No.
UFC martial arts are for you want to get into a fucking brawl.
Yes. You want to choke somebody out, kind of.
You want to choke somebody out,
that
kind
is
of thing.
not
Like
how-
no,
like,
that's not what the FBI does.
That's not what law enforcement should be doing.
No.
yeah, I would assume they would show something more like, what is the Israeli one? Krav Maga, right?
Krav Maga's a little more about hurting people.
Yeah, Krav Maga is definitely about taking somebody out as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So, Monkey, we have a little bit of background in martial arts. You were in the Marine Corps. Do they do combatives? What do they do there?
They have something called McMap. I mean, it's a little bit of a joke, but it teaches you the basics. It's a good foundation, but there's definitely a lot that can be learned as you go up in belt, of course.
Sure.
But yeah, it's conducive to the role.
Right. Like
once you get higher up in belts, you learn takedowns, you learn chokes, you learn all this other shit, but it's not UFC martial arts.
No.
Bro.
And so that's the thing is like when I was in law enforcement, like they were like, yeah, it's gonna hurt, but like you'll be sore, but you're not gonna need to go to the hospital.
Right.
Like, that's the goal, in my opinion. Is like I just need to get you into these handcuffs until you're calm.
I need to get you subdued for a few minutes.
Yep.
That's
just
right.
And sometimes that's harder than others. Obviously, that's why there are intermediate weapons like batons, pepper balls, blah blah blah.
Right.
But like going out and just like, yeah, we're gonna have Chuck Liddell teach FBI agents how to like choke people out. One, that's gonna cost $1 zillion.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a whole lot of legal liability that they don't talk about here, where all of a sudden, if you get an FBI agent who's out in the middle of the street choking some dude out and he kills him, they're going to be like, he's just going to go, I just did what they taught me to do in training. Who trained you? Oh, Chuck Liddell. Then you go to Chuck Liddell's school of choking out dicks in the street, and they're like, they're going to be civilly liable for that. So like, you're going to be hard. Well, Dana White is kind of a piece of shit, so maybe he'll, Also, they kind of just do whatever they want in the courts, anyways. But like, it's really tough to win in a civil court when you're liable like that. That's the whole point of having programs like PBCT and things of that nature is that they are court tested, they are court approved, and that
Right.
experts have like weighed in like, hey, yeah, like nobody wants to get into a fight, but this is probably the safest way they can do it.
Right, and then the whole, but the overall, just the whole idea is just it's a massive waste. If they go through with it, it would be a massive waste of resources. It would be a massive waste of money because there's already programs in place to train people. You know, it's not like the FBI agents don't cross train with other departments all the time, anyways.
Yep, absolutely. And a lot of the times, you know, the FBI will have like people and division like parts of divisions of things where they just go out and train other law enforcement agencies in this kind of stuff, and that's a great use of federal dollars, because then they don't have to spend your local money on it. They can spend it on hiring more police officers or raising police officers or firefighters or teachers' pay. But
no, not teachers' pay. We don't do that.
Right, fuck them. Fuck them kids.
Yeah, yeah.
So, if you don't know who Kash Patel is, this is the guy who wrote.
Oh my God, he wrote a children's book
about Trump being king.
Oh my God.
Let me see if I can pull it up here real quick, like, and we'll show the audience.
It's embarrassing to listen to.
Oh, I alt-tabbed and I lost it. Trump is king. Here, we'll go back.
No, you gotta look up Kash Patel children's book.
Plot against the king.
There it is.
Plot against the king. Yes.
There it is. There we go. Yep.
There he is as the wizard
in all of his glory.
I guess the lady in the back is supposed to be Hillary.
Is that who that's supposed to be?
Is
he the wizard in the background?
He's definitely the wizard, bro.
I mean, I'm on the Plot Against 3, The Return of the King. So.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I don't want any spoilers.
I'm not gonna read this, dude. You're
not gonna read it?
No, I'm not gonna read it. Why would I read it? It's a children's book. 2, it's by Kash Patel. 3, it's by Kash Patel.
Oh, that's a good reason.
I mean, it's 40 pages.
Well, of course, it's like one word per page.
I'm at a loss for words because this is America, and the whole reason behind the United States of America was to get away from having to answer to a monarchy,
to a king, to a monarchy. Yes, and now what are we trying? Now what are they trying to do? Bring us back.
You know, if you go over to our website, easyvotend.com, where we post articles and things of that and other helpful stuff. We're just getting it off the ground. The latest post, I put in a picture of the God Emperor of Mankind from Warhammer 40k, which I will talk about more in part 2. If you know who that is, they talk about Trump being a God Emperor. I swear to you that when the writers at 40k wrote about the God Emperor of Mankind, it was not as an aspirational thing. You do not want that.
And the God Emperor of Mankind was actually useful.
A huge dick.
And useful.
Well. He did stuff. At least they got Space Marines.
Right.
We'll never get Space Marines. Anyways, so do we have any other national news?
No, not that one. None that were on the proverbial docket. But I mean, I'm sure everybody present watched that shit show of a fucking interview yesterday, or not interview, like a little conference that Zelensky, Trump, and Tiny Pants Vance had.
So, for those of you who might not know, Ukraine has been invaded by Russia. If you didn't know,
just in case you've been living under a rock.
Yep, just in case. Totally. They said that they were going in there to hunt Nazis. They're just in there to try to reclaim old Soviet bloc land for gas and oil. There's a ton of off-sea gas and oil for Ukraine. That's what they're there for. There's a long storied history. So Ukraine has actually existed as an independent entity long before Russia did, just so you're aware.
And they were just absorbed into the Soviet Union when that happened.
Correct. And so
But
Russia has also been very upfront and open about the other countries that it plans to invade once it's done with Ukraine, including Moldova. They're fucked.
yeah, they basically want just to reestablish the old Soviet Union.
Correct.
They want to establish all the Soviet bloc countries and just have all that back.
Correct.
Which
And
is
it's that is not the world we live in anymore. I would like to think that we have grown.
no,
Um,
I don't understand how the government and actually the American people in general who are cheering for this shit can sit there and
then
be
that's
happy that we're basically rolling over for a Russian fucking. At this point, this is a Russian operation.
yeah.
Is what I hate to be a fucking conspiracy theorist if that's what it sounds like, but at this point, that's what it is. It's
And I want to bring up a good point from the chat that there was a unit that had some far right affiliation in Ukraine. I've been wanting to do a little more research on that because it sounds like maybe they split it up so they wouldn't like those. That
yeah, the
group would
Azov
always,
Brigade.
yeah,
Mm.
that's the one. Hey, we don't like far right people. I don't really like terrorists, whether you're far right or far left.
Nope.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yep.
I think that's fair. At any rate, the fact of the matter is the Ukraine is essentially standing as the bulwark against World War III. And the longer that this proxy war goes on, the greater the threat of going to full on World War is actually there. So the idea was that we're going to support Ukraine. They're going to take heavy losses no matter what, but like at least they'll stop there and realize like, hey, listen, we're not going to let you get any farther. But now we're trying to pull back from that. And well, the United States is definitely done. Even though a bunch of Republican, congressional members and senators are like, whoa, wait, no, we need to support them. And so
I mean, a lot of them have kind of gone back on that. A lot
that's
of
true.
them have been have said that they stand with Trump. Oh, America first. Blah blah blah. It's which I don't. I think the majority of them were probably either in politics or making their way into politics when the Budapest Memorandum was signed in 1994. I probably forgot about it. I guess it doesn't mean fucking dick.
Yeah.
We basically
Right.
we basically talked Ukraine into getting rid of their nukes in exchange for a security guarantee. Basically,
Yep.
it's I mean it's trashy to say the least. It's just it's fucking it's backstabbing. We told them we were going to help them if anybody attacked them. Both the U.S. and Russia did.
Yep.
And then
U.S.,
Russia
Russia,
turned
and UK. Yep.
Yep.
Mhm.
the UK, yeah, and it's ridiculous that this is what our country is standing for now. That we're standing for
letting
not.
countries bully other countries, but in this case, it's war crimes. They're murdering children.
Yep.
And so the big deal yesterday is that the president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, came to the United States for a visit to discuss things, and I would imagine that the conversation was the hope to like, hey man, maybe you should keep helping us out. And it really sounded like
Yeah, I
he
mean,
was
it sounded like Zelensky came here with the intent to basically do whatever he needed to, get a guarantee of support from the U.S. But it, in anything I've read and anything I've seen, there's been no guarantees made by anybody in the administration that they would continue supporting them against Russia. It was basically just, oh, we want your mineral rights, and that's it.
yeah. And so that's basically so just so everybody's aware, all of the stuff that we have given to Ukraine, quote unquote, is not. It's a loan. They have to pay us for it.
There's let me stop you there. There's grants and there's loans. The majority of what we've given them are grants, but those grants are enabling them to both buy and upgrade existing weapon systems that they have from us. along with different weapon systems from Europe. It's the same thing with Europe. They've given them mostly grants and they've given them some loans.
But so now, basically, we've done the Darth Vader. We've altered the deal. Pray we don't alter it further, kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. That's really unfortunate because again, they are so. If you don't know why Ukraine is so important, one with the gas and the oil, but the western part of Ukraine has several mountain ranges that basically make it impossible to invade the rest of Europe by ground. Russia obviously wants control of that because they want to exert more control over the United States. Oops. For Christ's sake. Unprofessional.
Great ringtone.
Fucking
Great
embarrassing.
ringtone.
That was
Great
my
ringtone.
alarm. That was my alarm.
I still
All right,
love
cut
it.
that out, Jamie. You want to cut that out? Thank you.
Yeah.
Edit that out.
And scene. No, so I don't even remember what we were talking about now.
No, we're talking about how Russia's
Oh, sure.
basically
So
influencing
they
Ukraine
they,
now.
they want
I mean,
to
not
exert
Ukraine,
more
the U.S.
control over the all of Europe, the UK, and they've already done a lot of things to control the United States because a lot of the propaganda and a lot of
I mean, if you ask me, Trump is just a fucking Russian agent.
yeah,
If you
I would
like,
agree.
I've read many things about him being a Russian agent that was hired brought on by the KGB, but it's basic. It goes back down to money because back in the 80s when a lot of shit collapsed under his fucking feet, nobody in the U.S. would fucking touch him.
Yep.
Nobody in terms of banks would make a deal with him. So where did he get a lot of funding from initially to rebuild all his shit? Russia.
Yep.
And for sure, Russia has a lot of oligarchs, but which one's the fucking mastermind behind all these oligarchs?
Twitter man?
No, it's Putin.
It's Putin.
It's Putin.
Twitter man.
It's
wishes.
simple. It's Twitter. Yeah, Twitter man wishes he was. That's why he's cozying up to him.
Yes.
He's trying to learn from the master.
Oh yeah. It's the shittiest league of villains ever.
I know, it's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing, honestly.
It's really, and like they're not even hiding it, and people are like cheering for it.
People are fucking lapping this shit up like fucking dogs. It's ridiculous. I don't understand how they can sit there and watch a South African immigrant do this shit to their government.
Yeah.
So this meeting was very, I would say it was very troubling, very disturbing to me. A lot of it was a lot of shouting. It felt very much more aggressive.
It was just them two shouting over Zelensky. That's what it was. It was just that they ambushed the guy. And, you hate to see it. It's
and talking about like, well, why didn't you wear a suit? But then like that's not professional. But then you just yell at the guy the whole time.
And then not to mention that fucking Musk was in the Oval Office in a fucking t-shirt, hat, and jeans and a blazer.
Did he have his dark MAGA hat on?
Yeah, he always wears his dark MAGA hat.
Yeah. Stop making dark MAGA being a thing. It's not going to be a thing. He can't even jump right.
No, he can't. It's one thing that I was talking about with my wife is that it's strange how Musk has caught the attention of conservatives because he's like, I hate to use this word, but he's the kind of person that going through like middle school, high school, they would have just called an R word and just left him to his own devices and just not associated with him, or just looked at him as less than, because
if he wasn't rich, absolutely
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
I guess if you're, I guess it was fucking, I guess if you're rich, you can just pretend to be super smart and everybody will accept you regardless of what the actual truth is.
So many people just equate like money equals smart, like, because some people are also just like, well, I don't have money and I'm not smart and that's the problem. But it's like, no, man, you can.
No, you're the problem.
Yeah, you're the problem. You could be smart too, like, but and the problem is Elon, fills his inner circle with people who tell him whatever he wants to hear.
Yeah, it's all just
Why would
yes
you
men.
not? You're the
That's
richest guy in the world,
yeah.
you know. So
I mean, it's
I did have friends that worked at Tesla like before, I guess, probably like in
before the dark
2013, 2012.
times.
Yes, before the Dark Elon showed up, yes. And he was still like a very strange, kind of person. He did have a cult of Elon working. My friend was not a cult member of Elon. It was very strange. That's the kind of people they want to surround themselves with, as
yeah.
you guys are mentioning. So it's been coming for over a decade at least. So
And I think the guy also is just like, I think part of like he's definitely addicted to social media. Like that's clear.
Oh yeah, that's definitely his main job. I don't
Yeah.
care what he says.
Yeah.
That's what he pays himself to do.
Yeah.
Is sit on Twitter all day and just retweet stuff and reply to stuff with one word answers and try to be a fucking meme lord.
Yeah. And I think the problem is Twitter was already a cesspool.
And he made it worse.
And he made it worse. And so now the only people on there are the people who are like, hey, good job, keeping our cesspool shitty. And then he's like, oh, these people like me. Maybe they do have some good ideas. I'm just trying to figure out how we got there. Because, like, the guy used to not be, like, insane. But, like, social media addiction, ketamine addiction,
he's always been pretty fucking sus, dude.
Yeah.
He's been pretty insane.
I think
he's always been pretty fucking insane. I think the turning point
moment for me was when like those kids were trapped in that cave.
Yeah, and he tried to send a mini submarine,
and like he just had like a napkin drawing of a mini sub. Like, no, we got this. And then he called. The cave diver.
He called the cave diver a pedophile. Yeah, like what is
what are you talking about? So yeah, that was my moment of like, I'm not on board with this guy, but now I'm really not on board with this guy. So yeah, Elon Musk sucks.
Yeah, Elon Musk is just he's like he's not even great. I'm not even gonna compare him to like somebody from fiction that's that's not even
Lex Luthor was smart.
You can't. Lex Luthor was smart. Bruce Wayne was smart.
Yep.
Tony Stark was smart.
Yep. Lex Luthor also like wanted to actually help the city. He was just like an ends justify the mean. Elon Musk just wants to steal like how the
he just wants to make more money.
Yeah, he just wants to make money and
he wants to steal how the treasury system works, but he doesn't understand it, so he'll never get it.
Yeah, is he Dr. Evil?
No, I think I'd rather have Dr. Evil. Dr. Evil is at least funny.
Yeah, Dr. Evil was smart
and funny.
He didn't.
And better
he
looking.
Didn't go. What was it? He didn't go to 4 years of evil school so he could be called Mr. Evil.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Elon Musk dropped out of college. That's okay if you dropped out of college.
He dropped. I mean, that's fine. He dropped out of college and then just threw money at what was it? I think PayPal. It was it was the first iteration of X that then became PayPal,
right.
And they kicked him out of it because he was doing such a shitty job.
Yep. And by the way, if you don't know, like if you think Elon is a like a smart dude who runs these companies, just look up like what they had to do at SpaceX and Tesla, because like literally they like if somebody at SpaceX, if somebody had a birthday, he'd get jealous and they'd have to throw him his own like, oh, Elon's here day, and they'd have to they'd have to get a cake and shit. Like you can look these stories up, like they're hilarious.
So
can.
The thing about with Elon Musk is he doesn't actually like build most of these things.
No,
right?
He just throws money at him.
Yeah, so that's all you have to do is just buy. He's using his money to grab things. He had a good deal with PayPal.
He did quote unquote build SpaceX, but what he did with SpaceX was he gave somebody really, really smart money, and then they built SpaceX.
The people who actually were founding SpaceX, he gave them the funding, and then went, I'm SpaceX.
Yes.
I'm Mr. Twitter man SpaceX.
Yes.
Same with Starlink. Not his idea. Bought a company.
Yep.
Neuralink, same thing. Somebody else, like actually the guy who founded Neuralink is also like suing him. That's a whole other thing you should look up. That's fascinating too.
Yeah, I think it used to be a close friend of his that was.
And that's the other thing is Elon Musk betrayed.
Oh yeah,
his best friends.
hyperloop.
Yeah. Oh,
The
hyperloop.
hyperloop
How
and
could you forget about
whatever
Hyperloop?
the fuck that thing is they were doing in Las Vegas.
Yeah, the Boring Company.
The Boring Company.
Originally, it was
Yes.
trying to be like some kind of meme lord, and it was like, aha, this is kind of funny.
So they made
But
that flamethrower that they made. I know somebody who has one, and I was like, this is literally one of those like torches that you use when you're putting down like the roof, like roof tiles.
Oh
That's
my
all it
god.
is inside of the plastic shell that they charge $600 for. So like the flame is like this long on it at most.
Yeah.
So
Not surprised.
He's not here to build things for the average American. He builds things for
No.
just other rich weirdos.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, who
So-
wanna have weird fantasies that they're, I guess, popular or cool or whatever, you know, like Zuck over there trying to pretend like he's a fucking UFC fighter
Oh
now.
yeah, he looked great after his bar mitzvah. At least he's out of his Roman emperor phase. That's terrifying. So, don't go to the public bath with Mark Zuckerberg. You'll end up.
Yeah,
stabbed.
he did run a campaign to block Southern Cali from getting a fast rail
That's
system
true.
because of Hyperloop.
Because of Hyperloop.
Yeah.
Trump keeps threatening, like, I'm going to build high-speed rail, and finally everybody's like, fine, fucking do it. Then he doesn't do it.
Yep.
It's one of the weirdest things with like just how much power somebody who is, can have, even though they have no real like.
They have no
decision
real
power.
like decision making power. You just throw enough money at anything, and
But the blocking of the southern, I guess, the fast rail train does remind me of. So I listened to a lot of podcasts, and one of them was a guy who kind of built up New York. He was an unelected official. His name was Robert Moses. So he actually made a lot of decisions for like where the roads go, and he was pretty much pro, streets and cars, anti trains and subways. So a lot of people are now living with the decisions for 7 years later. How come they have to take all these stupid ways just to get